West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. And the debates rage. 9 a.m. in the Mile High City. This Thursday, October 2nd, 2025. Let's go back to Sam in Denver. You guys are talking tax cuts and Jobs Act. And did it increase corporate investment?
Yeah, and thanks for hanging, Sam, because now we go back to things like the most recent example of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Studies have shown that only 20% of those tax cuts were used to reinvest into the companies, as far as, capital expenses, wages, and expanding benefits. 80% of it went to stock buybacks and other bonuses for those people that were in charge. I think there was a study that showed either the top 10 or 11 U.S. companies spent 3 times as much on their stock buybacks than they actually did on taxes over the next 12 months.
Yeah, there's studies for everything, but the fact is that after the tax cuts, unemployment went to historic lows for historically long periods. So obviously they were creating jobs. And then I'll also say, like I said,
not necessarily. No. Hang on, Sam. With respect, we just saw that of all the money that even if they were creating jobs, they spent 20% of it. So you're telling me that just because we got 20% of the tax cut actually created jobs, that's good enough? That's not good enough for me. It's not good enough, man, that 80% of it goes to stock buybacks and such. That's not what was promised. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was to produce jobs, and it didn't.
It absolutely did. How do you get the lowest unemployment then? I don't know what study you're looking at. I'd like to see the source, but
here's the thing is you can spend about 5 minutes on Google and you can go find all that information for yourself rather than challenging my sources.
But Bill, I don't understand why you're so offended, even if 80%, let's say 90% went to corporate buybacks. That's the corporation's money. I don't understand why there's so much frustration about the fact they used their own money the way they wanted to. It's a corporation. It's a free association. I can choose not to go do business with that corporation. The problem you have with the government is that there's no free association. It's taken, and it's taken at the point of a gun every time. So who cares if it's 80%? Who cares if it's 99%? It's their money. Go ahead,
and
Sam.
Who cares? Because we had the greatest economy maybe in history.
No, we didn't.
Everybody had jobs.
Sam, that's
Everybody
not
had
true.
Jobs.
Sam, that's not true.
Low inflation, low taxes, lowest poverty rates. How do you explain that, Billy? Lowest poverty rates.
I don't think
Greatest
all of those.
Stock market growth in a long time.
That's not true either. But that's okay.
58%, 50%, 8% over 4 years.
I will go and look at those numbers, but we did not have the greatest economy during Donald Trump's time in office.
Yes, we
didn't. No, we
What's
didn't.
your basis for that? What's your basis? Because I look at jobs, I look at inflation, and I look at unemployment.
Sam, hang on a sec. Hang on, Sam. I'm just talking economic numbers with you, and I brought up the information about 80% of the tax cuts going back to stock buybacks, and you're like, I don't know any of that number. And now you're like, I know all the numbers. You got to pick a lane, man. You got to pick a lane.
I don't know all the numbers. I know some of them.
Pick
I have
a
a
lane.
master's degree in business with an emphasis on finance and 15 years of finance experience. I'm not some random knucklehead.
It's fine. Nor am I treating you like some random knucklehead. I put you on hold to bring you back, but I brought you back. But I'm telling you, the information that's out there, that's available on search, is that 80% of the money from those Tax Cuts and Jobs Act went to stock buybacks. That wasn't the promise.
I don't buy that because the economy was too good. The lowest unemployment, low inflation, wage growth, good wage growth, a great stock market, and the lowest poverty rates. How do you explain that? Lowest poverty rates in history. So the poor benefited.
I will have to. I will have to go back and I'll have to go back and look at those again. I will go back and I will look at those numbers. I'm not disputing them, but I have a hard time saying that the causation was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act simply because of where we saw the money go. I have a hard time thinking that because there were large corporate bonuses and stock buybacks that lowered the poverty rate, because that has no impact. Corporate stock buybacks, it doesn't. I know, but hang on a sec. I'm challenging your causal relationship. That's the issue here, Sam. You seem to believe that this thing caused the other stuff. I don't agree with that. I will go back and I will look at the numbers. Your core numbers may be correct, but the causal relationship between the two, I don't think can be proven out.
Look at when he cut taxes and what happened after he cut taxes.
All right,
yeah, I did.
Guys,
we saw a slight boom in the GDP, and then it went back down to normal. It was nothing. We didn't get the growth we saw, Sam, but I appreciate it.
We got the Steve Reams, Sheriff of Weld County, coming up. We're going to discuss speed cameras just for money generation, or actually improving our communities. Steve has an interesting take on this. You're not going to want to miss it. Now is time for news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
And sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 82 today. This portion of the news sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story.
And look, we have $0 coming into the federal government right now because the Democrats shut it down. So what Russ Vought is working diligently on is examining how we can fix this mess to ensure that critical funding continues, that we can get people paid. But the Democrats are making that very difficult. And that's why the president put out a statement this morning saying that we're going to start looking across the board at layoffs and at agencies that we feel do not best serve the American taxpayer, that may need to be halted or permanently cut.
So Caroline Levitt last hour. The Democratic shutdown continues. We enter day 2 with no end in sight.
On that, I wanted to ask you about that because he mentioned Russ Vought in that. I think that came out about 8 o'clock this morning about cutting certain programs that they deem are not necessary. Is that real, or is that a negotiating tactic?
Oh, it's very real. And the Democrats should know that they put the White House and the president in this position. And if they don't want further harm on their constituents back home, then they need to reopen the government. It's very simple. Pass the clean continuing resolution, and all of this goes away.
Yes, exactly. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen once again this morning on Fox News also.
This has all happened because of the Schumer shutdown, because he's fearful of AOC running against him in 2028. If the Democrats are really concerned, they could open the government up in 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes. We already have a bipartisan bill that 3 Democrats have voted for. We just need 5 more of them to join with us, and we can open the government up.
And Wall Street is opening with stocks higher. The major averages finished higher on Wednesday in hopes that the stalemate between lawmakers won't last long. The shutdown isn't expected to impact Colorado in the short term, but state-run programs could feel the effects if it goes beyond a couple of weeks. Colorado is heavily reliant on federal funding. The state is expected around $14 billion in this year's budget. Over 41,000 people in Colorado are federally employed. 2 people are reported dead after a stabbing attack outside of a synagogue in Manchester, England. It happened as Jews are marking the Yom Kippur holiday. The suspect was seen driving a vehicle toward the crowd before going on the attack. A Highlands Ranch school was put on a secure perimeter Wednesday after the building was hit by a stray bullet. Police say a nearby resident accidentally fired his gun and the bullet hit an exterior door at Ranch View Middle School. He didn't think the gun was loaded and it accidentally discharged. He's cooperating in the investigation. All right. My latest edition of people I really like and respect who kiss up to Stephen A. Myth.
Who is this? Go on. What's up? How you doing? Who's this?
Stephen A. It's Megan Kelly, your neighbor on Sirius XM.
How you doing, Megan?
Welcome you.
How you doing, Megan? How's everything going? Thank you for calling in. How's everything?
I'm so happy that you're here. I love having you over as a neighbor. I'm going to bring you a cup of sugar and a butter.
Well, thanks so much. I'm just trying to be.
I think it's awesome.
I'm just trying to be as good as you, girl. I'm just trying to be as good as you. I'm trying to get where you at. That's what I'm trying to do, Megan. That's what I'm trying to do, okay?
You are far beyond me. You got this one. I love
God. Please, the dude, all he does is lie. He didn't hit 17 straight three-pointers in a college try. He says he played college basketball. He didn't play college basketball. Okay, Stephen A. It's like you should be on the Gong Show. Give him the gong. J.P. Morgan. Stephen A. Rockies GM Bill Schmidt announced his resignation Wednesday. Rockies finished one of the worst seasons in MLB history at 43 and 119 and 119 losses. Niners and the Rams tonight. NFL action continues. Both teams are 3-1. 57 in Westminster, 58 in Littleton, 59 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
That they saw your talent and thought you belonged at Sirius and that you took the opportunity because there's no one like you, Stephen A.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your KNUS forecast for the Denver metro area calls for late summer rather than early fall-like weather conditions today into Friday, as we're going to be looking at temperatures a good 10 to 12 degrees above average, mid and upper 80s for highs. Sunny, dry conditions, mid-50s tonight, 70 Saturday, 60 Sunday, weekend showers. Weather is a service of L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For quick, trustworthy, and dependable service, call L&L Heating and Air Conditioning at 720-851-1691. Visit them online at bestdenverhvac.com. That's bestdenverhvac.com. You'll be comfortable with L&L. I'm meteorologist Mark Huer in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
I love this guy. He's always just so honest. Colorado sheriff claims speed cameras are just money generators. This is CBS News. You know the name. He's legendary. Weld County Sheriff Steve Reams telling CBS that he's against the use of speed cameras as punitive measures of enforcement. This is important because, according to new Colorado law, they're going to be going up and up and up all over the state. He joins us now. Sheriff, soon to be county commissioner, thank you for joining us.
Yes, good morning.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. It's always a pleasure.
All right, so not happy about these speed cameras, huh? Tell us your position.
So, it's kind of interesting how this whole thing ended up in the news, to be honest with you. I mean, I get a ton of calls from constituents or Facebook messages or, whatever. Somebody's reaching out to me and saying, hey, are these things legal and why are they going up? And I always get those phone calls because, I'm the sheriff in Weld County, and a lot of people assume that whatever happens in any jurisdiction that I'm responsible for. And, so I keep telling these people, hey, this isn't a county function. I don't like them. I don't want them out there either. But they're going up in some of the municipalities within the county. And so people are getting frustrated with them. I am too. I have to drive through these same areas. And what I tell people is, hey, you need to go to those city councils and voice your displeasure. But really what it comes down to is I don't think most people can really look at it and say, does the ends justify the means? And, the Greeley police chief made probably the best argument I've heard for why he's using them. He says, hey, I have speeding concerns in these particular issues, and I just don't have the officers to dedicate to that particular need. So we're being responsive to the citizens and putting these cameras out in those areas. And that's fine. The question I have is, well, is it impacting the issue? So if you're putting these speed cameras out, is it slowing traffic down? are those complaints ending? Because if it is, great. But if it's not, then you say, okay, well then what are you getting? What are you getting from this? And I think we all know in many of these instances it's just revenue. And there's a couple of other municipalities that are using them in the county that, I mean, I'm getting a ton of people asking about them, and it just doesn't look like the camera is there to fix a problem. The camera is there to generate revenue.
Dollar bills, y'all. That's Steve Reams, Weld County Sheriff, joining us. He's running for county commissioner as well. Steve, Fort Collins putting in 12 of these. And I understand as a safety mechanism how they could be helpful. I think I would be most willing to put these in like construction zones, right? Because you're dealing with lives. Oftentimes, folks like racing through a construction zone. Some guy's out there just trying to, jackhammer something away, and he, as some guy's out of control. Yeah, dude, I want you to get popped. But on some side neighborhood street, and it's going to go off at 11 miles an hour over. So let's say you're now 36 and a 25. Yeah, that's probably, if you're putting them all over the neighborhoods, you're probably just doing it mostly for revenue streams. I mean, what do you think about the construction zones versus just kind of putting them all throughout the neighborhoods?
There's probably an application for them in certain situations. School zones, I think we all want kids to be safe as they're going to and from school, and that's where you often see officers, working traffic enforcement. Maybe a speed camera makes more sense there. Construction zones, there's probably merit for that. But really, I think the best deterrent is when you have a live officer sitting there who can target the real problem driver. And usually, as a person who's done this job for a while, just because everyone maybe, is flowing above the speed limit, there's oftentimes that one that you can pick out of the crowd who's weaving in and out. You might not be going a whole lot faster than everybody else, but that's the problem driver. And that's the part you lose with speed cameras. There's no person tied to the activity. And I think there's also the question of, you move from one address to another. Your car is still registered at the old address. The ticket gets sent to that old address. Maybe it doesn't get forwarded in time for you to pay it. The fine doubles or whatever the case may be. There's just issues there with the way the fine is delivered. You can't really talk to the officer on the side of the road and explain, hey, I had this circumstance. And I'm not saying you should talk your way out of every ticket, but there's a human element that's just missing. And I get it. It's expensive to have cops out there. But I'm not for the big brother state. I don't like it. And, I guess there's certain applications, but, they're very limited in my mind. And that's not where you're really seeing a lot of these speed cameras go up.
That voice you're hearing is Steve Reams, Weld County Sheriff, claiming speed cameras are just money generators. Headline out of CBS 4. Talk to us about that educational component. I'm always intrigued by this. I used to laughingly joke in my early 20s, I probably was on a first name basis with most of the Colorado State Patrol. But talk to us about that important element. You're dealing with young people making bad decisions. You're dealing with somebody maybe going through a crisis. Maybe somebody needs that officer intervention just to get their life straightened out, and collecting a series of tickets isn't going to do it. Why is that in-person component so important, so educational?
So oftentimes, even for my agency, about 30% of our traffic contacts end with a summons, but that tells you 70% of them end with a warning or, some other means. And I think those roadside conversations oftentimes, they're humanistic. They take into account what's going on. And honestly, a lot of times when you're standing on the side of the road talking to a person, you say, hey, we're out here doing traffic enforcement because we've had a lot of accidents in this area. We don't want you to be part of that. And people go, oh, man, I wasn't aware. And that will change a behavior far more than just saying, here's your ticket, don't do that ever again. And plus, I think there's just the whole process of, you get to know your law enforcement officer. I can tell you as a kid, especially as a young driver, I had plenty of encounters with law enforcement, and I deserved some tickets at times. And there were other times when the cop said, hey, I'd like to make sure that you make it to your 18th birthday. And that was way more impactful to me than someone writing me a ticket. So, there's that humanistic approach, and you just lose that. Again, I get it. There's, agencies are strapped for personnel. I just don't know if this is the best answer. It certainly won't be the answer for my organization.
That is Sheriff Steve Reams. He's joining Jeff and Bill live because we have questions about speeding cameras. Sheriff Reams, not necessarily a fan, but he's getting complaints from constituents because municipalities that he's not responsible for directly, city councilors setting up the cameras, not him. And Sheriff Reams is right that it's a great way, these traffic stops, to get to know the local law enforcement. And I have found out in my own personal travels that if you say just the right words, you get to know them even more because they'll frisk you. That's a personal greeting, but that's for another day. That's for another day, sir. We'll talk about that later. Now, the question I've got is, we're talking about speed cameras, and some places it may just be a revenue stream. Last couple of hours, Jeff and I have been debating taxes. Isn't it just a way that we can, make those people that are driving faster pay a user fee, a toll, a tax, if you will, for going too fast? Should we be leaning into this on every road? Because now maybe the rank and file people are going to be paying less taxes. Yes, I'm kind of doing this with a tongue permanently planted inside of my cheek, Sheriff, but tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, I guess, you could look at it as like a license to speed. Hey, as long as I'm paying the fine, I get this stretch of road and I get to go over the speed limit. The problem is, if you're going 10 miles an hour faster than everybody in that section just because you paid the fine, I don't know that necessarily creates an inherently safer roadway. All that being said, there is no perfect system out there. We want people to be safe drivers. We want people to navigate the roadways well. Sometimes speed is an issue. Oftentimes, though, in these areas where the speed cameras go up, I don't know that you can necessarily link speed to the causation for other traffic concerns, wrecks, so be it. So if the data supports it, maybe you got an argument for it. But Bill, I think the idea of just let's pay a tax so we can flaunt the law. There's just an inherent issue there because that's a slippery slope that goes to a whole lot of other things.
Darn, you saw through my plan. Okay, fair enough.
That is Steve Reams, is the Weld County Sheriff. Steve, I want to pivot here just a little bit. I saw that the Colorado Attorney General asking to be involved in the Ephraim DeBisa case. This is the gentleman that you had to warn everybody in your community about because he was falling through the cracks and then is wandering around UNC with a rifle. And you guys had to go pick him up again. Can you give us any updates on what the Attorney General's doing here?
Well, I don't know specifically why the Attorney General entered into that court hearing, other than the Attorney General is they're the legal representative of the Colorado State Hospital. So maybe they're looking for some avenue of making sure that DeBisa ends up in the mental hospital in the event that he's found incompetent again. I don't think there's a pathway there. It's been explored many times over, but maybe Phil Weiser is so much wiser than the rest of us that he's going to figure out a pathway that DeBisa can end up inside of the Colorado State Mental Hospital for the rest of his life, because he certainly isn't going to follow the law if he's released out into the community. He's proven that many times over. I'd like to see him just go back to Tanzania. That's my solution.
Here's what we need to do in order to get Phil Weiser to be super concerned about him: change his last name to Trump. He seems to have a real issue with people with last name of Trump. Just saying, you probably really focus on it there.
That's one of the smartest things you've ever said. I love it.
All right, that's it, guys. I got to go home. I'm not allowed to do anything more on the show. I got to go home now. Now, Sheriff, now I want to ask you something. It's not necessarily personal, but I want to say it's an insight. I want to give our audience a little bit of a window into some of the things that you're dealing with right now. What is one of the real big challenges that our local law enforcement community is facing that us out there just going through our normal jobs don't understand? What's something there that's really weighing on the law enforcement community that's really making it difficult right now? What can you share with us?
Yeah. It's the Colorado legislature initiated bail reform in the Summer of Love in 2020. And that's such a bad terminology to use, because bail reform sounds like, oh, we fixed something. Really what they did was screwed the system. And so everybody who gets arrested is being arrested because there's probable cause that they committed a crime. They need to go before a judge. And before bail reform, there was a lot of back and forth between the district attorney, the defense attorney, and the judge, and a bail would be set on this particular person to find out, if they're a risk to the community, they need to have some skin in the game of whether or not they're going to get released. They need to have some cash in the game. Well, with bail reform, everything went to what they call personal recognizance. So everybody's pretty much signing themselves out of jail with a signature and saying, oh, I promise I'll come back to court. Well, you might be surprised by this, but criminals aren't very trustworthy in a lot of cases, and they just don't come back. So they get out and they commit crime after crime after crime. We'll arrest the same person 12 or 13 times before they're finally in jail for a charge that's high enough to keep them there. And I'm telling you, it's so much more effort for law enforcement. I use this term way too often, but it's another way that it's just demoralizing to the law enforcement community to have to arrest the same offender over and over. And, the cops, that's job security, but think how many victims there are along the way for this guy who should have never been out in society. It's a failing of our system. It's one of those things that most citizens don't see. Thankfully, they're not the victim of this offender's crime, but it's repeated and repeated, and it just keeps happening in this state. You couple that with some of our changes in the mental health stuff, like with Mr. DeBisa, and it's a compounding effect that it's just demoralizing to law enforcement. I'm so grateful that people keep signing up to do this job, because they're walking into an extraordinarily tough environment in Colorado, but that tells you how dedicated the people in law enforcement truly are. I don't think they get the credit they deserve by half as much. So, that's the long answer to an easy question, I guess. But letting offenders out is not the answer.
Oh, Sheriff, that's got to be so tough, and I can see that idea of knowing that the people that take the oath and put on the badge and know that their life can be on the line, and any day they show up to work, that they're trying to prevent the rest of the community from being victimized, and the system is set up to allow certain criminals to continue to create more and more victims until the system decides to take it seriously. That's got to be really tough, because they're there to prevent people from being victimized, and they have to stand there and watch it happen over and over again, and they know who's responsible, and the system tells them they can't. That's hard. That's really hard, man.
Yeah, that's a great summary of it, Bill. And it's, for those of us that are working in this profession, and I still call it a profession, it's not just a job. I credit those folks, because it's a harder environment to be a law enforcement professional than it's ever been. And again, they don't get nearly the credit they deserve.
That's Steve Reams, Weld County Sheriff. He's now running for county commissioner. Sheriff, are you going to be able to make that transition over to that job? There's a lot less door kicking in, although you do get to sit at committee meetings.
Yeah,
so.
But you should bring the handcuffs, I'm just saying, just in case.
My focus on public safety is not going to change. I mean, I think I'll be looking at things from a different perspective, obviously. But 29 years with the Weld County Sheriff's Office, I'm ready to turn it over to someone else. And there's a great guy coming up behind me that I think is going to take the agency probably in an even better direction than what I could. And it'll be nice to watch from the sidelines and kind of focus my attention on a little broader scale. It will be different, but I'll still be engaged in the community, still be engaged in Weld County as a whole. And, again, I'm always going to be a public safety guy. And even if I'm just doing it from the sidelines and helping the sheriff's office, that's okay. I've done my part, and I'm happy to make the transition. It's time for a new leaf in life.
Those of us that look at Colorado and the challenges it's facing can oftentimes be sad with the direction of the state legislature, with the governor's office, the senators, all that. And then you get these gems like Danielle Jurinsky, Steve Reams, that in their communities are leading so well. It gives you great hope that not all is lost in Colorado. You can go live in a great place like Weld County because it's going to have, hopefully, a county commissioner there named Steve Reams. His website, Reams for Commissioner, reamsforcommissioner.com, reamsforcommissioner.com. Go support him and invest in these great community leaders. 29 years with Weld County Sheriffs, now heading on over to serve as a county commissioner. Love it. Steve, I always appreciate it. Thank you for your time today, sir.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys, and keep up the good debate.
That's what we do. And
Yeah,
speaking of that, join the conversation. Maybe you look at these traffic cameras and you're like, great, they're safety. They force you to slow down. No more personal determination as to whether or not you get a ticket. You speed, you get the ticket. You have to slow down now. Maybe you look at these cameras that way. Or maybe, like Steve, you go, look, these are revenue generators, and an important component of policing is personal interaction. That's being taken away. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Guys, let's talk Guy Reese. Top of the line Hunter Douglas custom blinds, shades, and shutters at Guy Reese all throughout Denver. They are the city leader in providing those high quality Hunter Douglas custom blinds, shades, and shutters. Look, we've never had a personal design consultant. I painted in our house if things needed changing, and that unfortunately restricted the great design capabilities that we could have in our home. So we went to Guy Reese. My wife got to ask a personal design consultant 1,000 questions. They walk through all the different types of blinds, shades, and shutters they have from Hunter Douglas there. They have paint samples. They've got home decor samples. They have it all there. And best of all, they come right out to your home. So you can get that in-person, in-home design consultant. They brought shade samples. They brought paint samples. All that stuff, we could see what it looked like right in our own home. And we have new custom Hunter Douglas blind, shades, and shutters. We love them. They're on remote controls, which is just amazing. So we've been thrilled. You can get the same expert advice in your own home. Do yourself a favor. Get started today by visiting GuyReese.com. That's GUIRYS.com, GUIRYS.com to schedule your in-home consultation. You'll be sure to thank me. Go check out the great people at Guy Reese. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
If you don't know, Bill Thorpe does trivia. Yeah. You can actually go hang out with him in person.
Yeah, you can. I'm at Dry Dock on Wednesdays, Hamden and Chambers. Had a great night last night. Not necessarily a big crowd, but had a new couple that came in. It was their first time. We chatted, but by the end of the night, they were hanging out with the table next to them, and they were all taking pictures, and they were sharing cell phone numbers. So, again, friendships were made despite what I was doing in the bar at the time.
I got to ask you about trivia because I've only
Yeah.
done it a few times. And
I'm telling you, it's very easy when you know the answers. You
Yeah,
give them all
right.
to me, it's so easy. So
well,
easy.
That's where I'm a little torn because there's a competitive element to me that's like, I'm going to win. Like, I need to stay focused and, most importantly, sober to win this thing, right?
That's your problem.
And then I imagine you have other people that are like, I'm just out for a good time. But I'm always afraid that the competitive side is going to take over, the let's have a fun time. And then I am conflicted.
Yeah, there are a couple of teams that come. They come for blood every week. Now, they're always trying to win. The nice thing is they don't always. I've got one dude that comes in that is an encyclopedia of knowledge, but he does have some limitations. And so he always is going to be a challenger, but if the questions don't fall properly, he's not going to be one of the top ones.
Does he have the Kamala Harris earpiece?
No.
The earrings that apparently Bluetooth.
But I have seen him with some note cards for some things, like order presidential stuff, and I'm like, dude, you're taking this seriously. I mean, you've prepared before showing up here. The thing that I look at is when I'm doing it, I understand this at the core is just about having fun and free beer. So while
free beer, they do
beer.
Free beer at.
Yeah, at Dry Dock. What we do is, so you get there's a gift card, a $25 gift card if you finish in first place, $10 gift card if you finish in second. Okay. But if you're willing to be a little silly with me along the way in the journey, I hand out free beers during the game. So just by doing a couple of silly things with me, you get a free beer immediately right there. And so that's part of it is I understand that competitive nature, but I'm also leaning into these people that I'm giving you a layup. I am giving you one of the easiest free beers you will ever earn in your life. And all you got to do is just be a little bit silly with me. That's it. So I think that's kind of why we designed it that way. Is you've got people that can be competitive, you can fall into the win, but also there's ways for you to just walk away with a free beer.
Is defining Anti-Deficiency Act fall under your silliness?
No, not at all. Not at all. But yeah, there are all sorts of things we'll do.
So that's Wednesday nights at Dry Dock?
Yeah, Wednesday nights at Dry Dock. We kick it off at 6 o'clock, and it's fun. Yeah.
PM.
And again,
there
no pressure. We have a lot of fun. There's a food truck out there, so people get food. And again, I go. We have a lot of fun. I make fun of things. I make fun of myself. There are some times that people that are there know answers, and they'll make answer references to me sometimes, and it's great. It's the crowd there is good.
What
it's a
is the
bar.
overlap in the crowd? How many people that show up for the trivia are listeners of the Jeff and Bill show?
Less than 0.5%.
It's a totally
Very
different
few.
crew.
Yeah, it's a totally different crowd. So it's kind of cool. Every once in a while, I get people, and sometimes I've had people. I know your voice from somewhere, and they'll ask me, "Do you announce at this and this sporting event?" No, but that would be fun. Yeah, so I get that every once in a while, but not a lot. There are a handful of people that know my other life, but not a lot. Yeah.
I think we should all go. We should have a 710K in U.S. team. Kelly, Mark,
there could be
Adam.
We should do one.
Jim.
We should pick the right one, like the right theme. That you guys could come in and do something that could be a lot of fun.
Constitution Day, American History Day.
Yeah, there have to be something. We'll talk about
Maybe
that.
Not Taylor Swift or Harry Potter.
Dude.
We would fail.
They're
big
so
time.
good.
Maybe that's where I could go and just drink because I'm not going to do well with Taylor Swift. At all.
And there's some regular teams that show up, and like on the Harry Potter one, there's this team of teachers, and I know that they know Harry Potter, so I know they're going to do well. There's this other older retired couple, and I'm like, ooh, you probably haven't seen these books, maybe even the movies at all. And so I knew they weren't going to do as well. So, yeah. So you can see that sometimes. But we did one a couple of weeks ago that was it was grunge rock and then boy bands. And you can imagine there's not a lot of overlap in the Venn diagram there. Yeah, so it was a complete flip-flop of the teams. The teams that were on top in round one were on the bottom in round two, and the teams that were on the bottom in round two or in round one were on the top in round two. That was fantastic to do. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Thorpe, you putting out these speed cameras everywhere?
Here's the thing. If I want to do it just blatantly as revenue, yeah, absolutely.
On every corner.
Yeah, if I'm doing it for revenue, yes. The question I've got is exactly what the sheriff outlined, and that is about the actual law enforcement and does it reach the goal of lowering the speeders. If that's my goal, then again, I'm targeting them. However, I can see how this is a really, really easy revenue generator, and I'm speaking of that as a lifelong Coloradan who has gone through Empire and gotten tickets. Just saying, you're running up that hill.
Empire, yeah.
And all of a sudden you get to Empire and it's like, hey, it's now 35. You're like, well, crap. And he sits either in the middle of town or at the end of town.
Morrison take
Morrison did that
tens
too.
of thousands of dollars worth of tickets?
Yeah, I've written them a check too. So, just saying. Just saying. One of us has a problem speeding in this conversation. That would be me. Yes.
Well, like I said in the conversation with Steve Reams, putting them in, especially where when lives are at stake, that's where it changes for me. School zones and construction zones.
Yeah.
Right? That's where the speeding has to stop. And we got to put the more pain on in order to make that to stop. I get it. Random streets, and this is all going to change when we're all in Waymos, which will happen in the next 20 years anyways. No one's going to own cars anymore.
No, we won't.
Except for maybe ranch work, but it's mostly going to be Waymos. And it's actually quite relaxing, and you don't really notice going under the speed limit or right at the speed limit in those. So I think things will change there. I'm not a fan of putting them up except for where human life is at stake, and we got to clamp down on that. Speeding through construction zones.
When you're worried about human life, I'm all on board with you. However, I can understand the revenue generating argument. Now, I'm not saying that's the direction I would go, but if we're going to be honest about it, that, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to clip you because this is also a great revenue generator. And if you sell it as, hey, on the other end, we'll lower our taxes. But the problem is that'll never happen because, as soon as it's a revenue generator, they're going to go, hey, we get to keep more of your taxes. Yeah, and we're going to spend all this more money. So, yeah, it doesn't get me to the end that I want it to, lowering your taxes. But if they're going to be honest about it, okay, fine. Yeah, because I feel like that's how some of this is done anyway. There are certain times and certain places around the month. What's that rule here in Colorado? Oh, it's getting near the end of the month. We've got to watch out for the speeders. Yeah, for the speed traps.
Join the conversation. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Maybe you got a ridiculous way of getting out of tickets you'd be willing to share with the listeners of the Jeff and Bill Show.
I was kind of disappointed when they changed the rule about us ignoring those, automatic camera speed traps. Because for a while, you didn't have to pay them because you weren't served, you weren't given it by an actual law enforcement
There was a
officer.
guy that took a picture of money and sent it back to the police.
Yeah. Okay. Again, we're going to be 100 on this show right now, and I'm sorry, Mom, if you're listening. I would ignore those tickets. I have a lot of them that they have my picture of me speeding, but I knew I didn't have to pay them because there was no enforcement mechanism. So I didn't care when I saw those vans. It didn't matter. Didn't matter at all. And again, I'm not doing 75
Did you
and a 45.
do the single finger salute as you went by?
No, only because I don't want to have to explain that when and if they actually decide to enforce it. But I did think about the idea of why don't I just get silly costumes or some sort of hat or something I could do when I'm going by. But oh well. I'm just being honest with it. Once I knew that those didn't matter, again, I'm not doing 75 and a 45. I'm normally 5 to 10 above speed limit, but I understand that's a risk. Yeah, that's just I lost my license driving too fast, but that's a story for another day.
Ooh, right as we're up against the break, too. All right, we'll continue. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Trump is ready to fire 100,000 federal employees. Have the Democrats made a mistake by shutting down the government when Trump's ready to push it this far? Or do you blame Donald Trump for leveraging a situation to harm federal employees? Billy and I and Gary debated that.
Yeah, we did.
It was fun.
This was fun today.
Plus, illegal immigrants taking Medicaid dollars. We exposed it all. If you go to 710knus.com, you can download the podcast there, 710knus.com. Wow. Thank you to everybody for the debates today.
Yeah. You guys have been great. This was a lot of fun. This is why we are different than anything else that you're going to find anywhere in Denver and probably over the grand fruited plain across America. Jeff and I are trying to carve a different path going back into what old school talk radio used to be about. Not talking at you, but talking with you. This is the modern day back fence where you and I look at each other, we discuss what's going on in our lives, and we may actually vehemently disagree. But at the end of the day, we can still be Americans, we can still be Coloradans, and more importantly, just like Jeff and I, we can still be friends.
You've been listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is KNUS.